False start there. What is going on, guys? Welcome into the Creed of Crypto live stream. I am Broke Boi Crypto. I have here beside me, as always, my friend and co-host Crypto Ewok. And below us to start off the brand new year is the one, the only A Squared. It is Axis Alive. We got a big show for you guys tonight. We're going to go over a lot of stuff. Obviously, some charting with the Pulse Chain ecosystem. We're going to talk about the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, what we may be looking at in this bull run. I know Axis has been on record before talking about thinking that we could, get into 2026 and still have some bullish things going on. So really excited to get his thoughts. We're going to have an active chat tonight, of course, considering that Axis is here. So hit us up with any questions, comments, anything that you guys want to talk about tonight as well. But Axis, how you been, man? Haven't talked to you one-on-one for a bit, but new year, new stuff happening. We've got the halvening, of course, coming this year with Bitcoin. But how are you feeling about crypto overall and where we are here in 2024?
I'm loving it, man. This Bitcoin price action off of the new year here, it's would move up a couple grand here in the last couple of days, so that's an improvement, right? Coming up, we didn't know if it was in a pennant. We didn't know if it was gonna break down or break up necessarily, but so I mean, Bitcoin's been leading the way. Bitcoin dominance really stole the show last year, and now if there's things starting to brew up in the altcoin market, we're seeing things like Solana pop off and other altcoins. Funny story time. I was watching you guys the other night, and Ewok brought up the wrong Solana chart, and he's just going like, "What the heck? What are they talking about? This guy's Solana's pumping. What are you talking about?"
Right.
Oh, that was so funny.
I kicked myself after the show. I felt like such a moron. It was an old Solana chart from FTX. Well, FTX is obviously no longer in business, so there was no data on it. And then I was like, man, what the hell?
Yeah, he's like, I'm not seeing the pump that you guys are talking about here.
I didn't catch that right away. I was like, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, does he just not have the chart scrolled over enough to the right, or what's going on?
Zoomed in completely wrong chart.
Yeah,
it's all good. So, anyways, it's been an interesting 2023. I think like the bears stayed bearish way too long, and the few of the really good people to watch, we're calling for the start of the bull market January of 2023. And so to see that kind of play out now, we have to ask ourselves, like, in terms of Bitcoin, when is that retest of 30,000? Is it before higher prices, or is it coming soon? And then what happens after that? This is like your 2020 year in terms of 4-year cycles. And so we all know how that happened. It was a big up move into March, and then the crash from COVID, and then the rally out, and then the huge DeFi summer. And so this could be a pretty volatile, but overall good year for crypto.
Yeah, definitely expected to be more volatile than 2023. I mean, that was pretty much an accumulation year, and this is really what everybody's been looking forward to. And, it's funny because just looking at sentiment, and maybe we can get into that a little bit, but just seeing things as far as our primary ecosystem with Pulse Chain over the last couple of days, just weirdly, you know what? It all depends on where you happen to be looking at Twitter at any given moment. We can say what sentiment is like, but it could just be that certain little silo of people every now and then. But yeah, definitely saw a lot of weird stuff over the last couple of days. And it's funny, I brought this up to Ewok before. I don't know about you, Axis. I'll just ask you this too. Like, it's almost like because we've all been talking so long about 2024, that's when the real bull market's going to start, that literally the calendar will turn and everybody's patience will just, not that it already isn't running out, but that the patience just goes totally out the window. It's like, all right, here we go. Okay, it's 2024. Let's go up now. What do you think? I mean, because this quarter, and this is going to lead into the bigger overall question we're asking, but this quarter, I mean, how much bullishness do you think? We can just start with kind of BTC and ETH because that's where we were going to go here. But what do you think we're looking at for BTC and ETH if you want to bring your stuff up here over the course of this quarter? And I think people have to continue to be patient because, like you said, we just saw, we got up over 46K. Jim Cramer is, hey, this thing's not going away. Bitcoin's not going away. I don't know when people are going to learn that, as if he was saying that at 16K. So, yeah, if that isn't a signal that we're probably due for a pullback, I don't know what is. But what do you make of where we're at right now? And just over the course of this quarter, and then I'll let you go where you want to go with it over the rest of this year and then this entire bull cycle for Bitcoin and the larger cryptocurrency market.
Okay. So, yeah, I was just doing this here live. I took this start of 2020 January here, and then I just put it right where we're at now, the start of 2024, 4 years later. And wouldn't that be so picture perfect if it ran up to like 54, 55,000, and then we saw that retest of 30,000 level. Now, one of these guys that I follow on YouTube, you guys might have heard of this guy, Steve Courtney from Crypto Crew University. He always talks about in his technical analysis of how Bitcoin does these. It's like a you build the staircase basically. So there's like a initial explosive wave out of the lows, and then there's a secondary wave but in order for that secondary wave to come into play, you have to come back and retest the base. So this would be like in 2015, they came back, retested the base, built up the stairs again, came back, retested that again, and then it built up for that parabolic run. And I think like what you could see is like something like that again, where we did it here earlier in the year. We created that base, and then we had phase 1 of the bull going into phase 2 now, and then we just need to come back and test that structure down there at 30K. And I think the big question in everyone's mind is it going to be one of those situations with the ETF coming, if it gets approved? Is it a sell the news event, yes or no? You know, do we go up higher first and then retest, or do we just go roll over quickly from like the 48K is my level that I'm looking at for Bitcoin. I think 48K is common. We have it here on this breakout of this pennant going to like a daily here. You can see it was a pretty much picture perfect triangular structure here. Something like this. And then so bullish continuation, consolidation, and then another leg up would put you around that 4850K level. So that's your Q1, and then that might be it. Now, Bitcoin might tap out after that for a little bit and need to do a cool off period for the rest of the year. And why do I say that? Is because when I look into Bitcoin dominance here, let's see, I think I was looking at it on a weekly real recently, and I saw this like shooting star on this weekly time frame. And when I'm doing my analysis, like the longer the time horizon, so like the weeklies and monthlies have a lot more weight on these candlestick patterns than like say like an hourly. Also, context matters a ton. So like the context here is that Bitcoin dominance at a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times bottom pattern here, and then ripped up 39%, and that was like its big year where Bitcoin really took the lead against an ever growing altcoin market, right? That's gonna always be an underpinning in the future. Is like there's always going to be more altcoins that can do more matter gains with lesser liquidity, right? Forever. And so how can Bitcoin expect to not continue to fall, right, in dominance going into the future? And so that we're all looking for that in the altcoin market, and we got it here in this shooting star candlestick pattern here on the 11th or the 4th. I'm sorry, the week of the 4th. And then so ever since then, it closed lower than this high here in October, and I think it's just the beginning of the start of the move for altcoins. And the final comment here is when you look at ETH and BTC on this like super long time frame, it builds out this giga pattern. It's a giga pennant pattern is what I call it, and it goes back so far, and but it holds a lot of weight. And so this is what I'm seeing is like it's do or die time for ETH. You know, this is going back to 2016, believe it or not, right at the turn of the year there. Support. Got close here for 4 times support, and now we're coming back into test after not being back down here for almost 4 years. Wow. And so it's right on cue where BTC dominance is falling. It's having its last gasp for air. Price might run to 50K, and then some of that money might start to rotate into altcoins. That's kind of what I'm looking at.
That's what we're hoping for, right?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, like you were saying, that 48K area as far as possibly a top here in this quarter. What are your expectations as far as? I mean, I don't think any of us care too deeply about a Bitcoin ETF, but I mean, you know, the market obviously has been that's all everybody talks about. So, I mean, are you also of the opinion that will probably be? You just outlined the 2 scenarios there. Do you lean more toward the like pretty much quick sell off in the days after it's announced, because that's what just felt like the right thing to me. You know, and do you think it does retest 30K? Do you think it really does go down that far? Because I was thinking maybe 35. 30K, it would just be interesting, you know, to go that far down. But if that's where support is, then that's where it is. So what do you think will happen there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm cool with it. Makes sense to me that the ETF gets approved, and then that's the excuse for the sell off. Like that makes sense to me. And I'm just looking at it structurally. So like anywhere, see this breakout candle here that never came back and retested. So 34.4 would be the height of that candle.
Yeah. Okay.
That level might be it with like but remember when I say retest 30, it could literally be like an hour long wick down there, quick, a punch through and then back up. And it's, so in terms of you looking backward, it wouldn't have mattered really. But yeah, no, I think like this is the range to look for here in the mid to low 30s. Something like in here is a retest of this level would be totally normal for Bitcoin.
Wouldn't also a denial be another good reason for a sell-off? I mean, I think you get the best of both worlds, right? If it's approved, you get to sell the news. If it's denied, I think people are bearish. What are your thoughts? I think it has the same effect almost.
I kind of do too.
Sure. I mean, so no matter how you cut it, BTC should come down soon to come back and retest some of these levels. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that sounds like it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then kind of extending out, you know, over the rest of this year. I mean, so for this quarter, I mean, yeah, we've probably seen or are already near the highs that we're going to see. But let me ask you this first, actually. So with Bitcoin coming down into the 30s again, and you were just talking about ETH, like getting to do or die time, which AKA could mean alts obviously rallying too. And we had somebody ask this in the chat a couple of weeks ago, and I want to see if you can kind of confirm where Ewok and I were on it. But if we see Bitcoin pull back in the mid to low 30s like that, does that necessarily mean that we see the altcoin index, like as a whole, pull back a percentage like that? Because, you know, it seems to me like there may be some strength in some of these after we've kind of had this leg up here. So, yeah, what do you make of that, just as far as alts in general, and then maybe like Pulse, obviously, specifically, too?
Dude, so it's going to get really hard to know specifically, like, I'd like to err on the side of caution that if BTC comes down hard enough, it will affect ETH and the alts. So that it'll immediately, with the surge and down in price on Bitcoin, everything's going to get a smack first. But then what happens in these later stages of the bull run is that they get up faster. So like, yeah, you might get, it might come into a situation where like everything gets hit immediately on a sell down, but then it just so happens that ETH will get up a little bit faster this time and it'll go a little bit harder. And the altcoins will get up even faster and go even a little bit harder. Because it's more like confidence building and there's more money pours into the space. And then specifically with like PulseChain and eHEX and these tokens, like they're in a league of their own right now in terms of performance. They're not doing anything relative to like what the other part of the market is doing at all. Actually, we did a correlations matrix. Crispy Man from Hexfire.io was able to put together this really cool tool for us where we can actually go and look at all the assets and we can compare. And if you guys have any suggestions of things to look at, we could do that. Let's take a look at Pulse here because that's a favorite. Let's see here. Where is it at? Here it is. So if I click this, Pulse is obviously mostly correlated here with, I don't know, can you see my screen or is it tiny? Probably it's pretty small.
There you go. That's
good.
Getting better. There you go.
So Pulse and PulseX, obviously the thickest liquidity is between these two coins. So they're going to move almost 100% positively correlated together. It's a 0.98. And then you can go down the list here and see, Inc. 0.9. So pretty correlated positively. Honestly, Hedron, Icosa, these ones we wanted to look at tonight, they're really tied. They're doing what Pulse and PulseX are doing, which is telling me that the market's not trading them. And they're just sitting idly by, going up and down with whatever the waves of the ocean are going to take them. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, I kind of see that across all the markets. It's just not a whole lot going on. There's some big sells and a bunch of little buys, but it's all kind of balancing itself out. There's no big moves really, just kind of all moving together, and whatever one goes, everything else kind of gets pulled along with it for the ride. So
That's 100% true of like PulseX, and Ink. They're so tied together that they're doing what Ink is not going to go do anything on its own yet. It might later on, but right now it's not going to do that.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to look into these because, okay, so here's the hexes. They're kind of like pretty well tied in, like you're saying. They're doing whatever. They take turns kind of over and underperforming Pulse, right? That's what they are all doing effectively.
Right.
But when we look here at like, where's BTC on here? Negative 0.15.
Wow.
So we're doing the opposite of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes up, we're going down on the average here, slightly. So it's, I don't even know, where's ETH on here. ETH is like a slight positive, but for all intents and purposes, it's almost inconsequential. And so we did some other stuff, like we threw on like the US dollar here. So when the dollar is negatively correlated to us, which that makes sense, right? Because when dollar goes up, crypto comes down, and vice versa. Dollar goes down, crypto goes up, risk goes on. See how PDI and Atropa are completely negatively correlated with Pulse? Do we remember back to in the summertime when we were down in the dumps here and Pulse wouldn't move at all, but PDI and Atropa started to really move during this period?
Yeah.
It seems as if the PDI and Atropa ecosystem is like a counter trade to what the core RH stuff does based on this correlation data.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was doing over the summer too. I mean, like that's exactly what was going on. Everybody was getting into the Atropa stuff, and it was like, you know, the narrative is like, well, Pulse isn't pumping because people are getting into that. And then the moment that PDI and all that stuff sold off big time, that's when we got that like epic 2x pump of Pulse Chain off the lows.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. So, you know, in terms of like, I don't know what's going on with the broader space. The RH stuff is completely beating to its own drum and doing whatever it wants to do right now. I think it's just building up. I think this is a huge build up phase, especially here for Pulse Chain. It's we broke out of this pennant here. This was like, I called it Federer's pennant. He was measuring it, and David Federer was measuring it from the top, but I was just taking it from the SEC breakdown level. So we are, you know, out of the weeds on that for the most part. And now price is just kind of like consolidating here. This here yellow line is the 100-day moving average. So I think so long as we oscillate around that and hold that as like general support, it should just continue to build up as we go into the future. Another thing here is I've been looking at Pulse on the Ethereum chain. There's a huge pair over there. It says that there's almost $2 million of ETH paired up against almost $2 million of Pulse. And we were seeing some like huge sells come in on that side. So somebody bridged a bunch of Pulse over and was dumping it on the Ethereum side. But that's look at these wicks. If I delete out all these drawings, look at the size of these wicks over here. I mean, someone's just nuking, and then someone's coming in and supporting it over there.
Buying it right back up.
Yeah, right.
So there's definitely a clear intention here to help support the price. Now, this Pulse chart looks a little different because it's basically a test of the lows. If you notice here, we got a wick low, a double bottom, and a triple bottom here with wicks even lower, which might be a concern. Well, why is this testing the lows? Well, this is Pulse measured against Ethereum. So, you know, in terms of Ethereum's overall relative strength, Ethereum's been rising and Pulse has just kind of been grinding sideways. Yeah. But we're still getting that support in here. So I think it's coming into do or die time. I think we can expect a move up or down in the short term. We're playing with these moving averages. All the energy is getting squeezed into this like funnel, and it's all gonna ping pong around, and then something's gonna happen.
We hope it's that way.
Right.
It definitely feels like something is imminent because, I mean, we had that, you know, aggressive pump off the lows like we talked about. And then, you know, Pulse just hasn't really been able to flip and turn that, 4 zeros and a 7 into support yet. So we've come back down below that. But, you know, I'm sure a lot of us follow Jenkins on Twitter. Like he talks a lot about, you know, charting Pulse Chain. He'll do a stream every now and then. But do you see also like that 44% off of SAC rate, the 4056 area as like a main level of support right now? You know, you were looking at that 100-day average. That was pretty much it, I believe. Yeah,
right here. Down here, 5.6. Where are we at here? Yeah, right here where this was a double bottom. And then, Yeah, I mean, I think the 100-day moving average here, and then if you turn it into a 21 daily bull market support band, we're touching it now. So this is kind of where I expect support to pick up 100%. But there's always that what if, with a lot of these other things, it's very hard to know, exactly right now how this is going to play out. I think my intuition is telling me that this is going to just be one of these periods where we just kind of grind sideways until that move comes in.
Yeah, and the big what if too is there's a lot of big bag holders out there, right? Still, I mean, and who knows if they get just frustrated and want to jump into something else. I hope we've washed a lot of them out by now, but yeah, there's that.
I mean, if we come and repeat, right?
Yeah,
that we might just repeat testing this area, and by February we're moving back up towards sack rate.
Yep.
There are a lot of big bag holders in the system, and what we were talking about in the green room comes to mind. Just people like that are tired of waiting. They're jumping ship. They're chasing other projects, which would explain a lot of the. It's just fatigue, right?
Yeah.
A fatigue of waiting for something to happen.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, just more sideways action builds up to a bigger move.
But as frustrated as people may get, I think it's still healthy. It's still bullish for the overall market to get them out now, rather than wait for a 3 or 4x and then they sell and you're back to where you are. That's almost as frustrating as just getting them out now, where they don't have the power to do that later.
Calmer ride back up the sack rate, I think is kind of what you're saying. Because I mean that would kind of be what that would create, I think. And you were just saying, Axis, like talking about getting to sack rate, maybe next month or something like that. Talking about the Bitcoin halvening coming up, and then we'll really go into like this cycle overall. I know you had a great stream the other day with your buddy where you guys do like once or twice a year just macro stuff, and I watched that whole thing. It was awesome. But as far as Pulse Chain by the halvening, I mean, to you, there's a lot of scenarios that we could see here, but Sami, I know, put out a video a couple weeks back where he was talking about, and huge caveat here, but he was talking about if Pulse Chain were to perform as Hex did in the last cycle, which, at this point, I don't know how many people think that is what's going to happen or not. But with the halvening coming up, he was talking about needing to have almost a 20x from here by the halvening to keep pace with what Hex did. So 20x just by the halvening. Where do you think we could actually be by then? Just looking at the kind of this first quarter and then going into the second quarter for Pulse.
Yeah, so I don't know if I want to dishearten anyone, but I don't think a 10,000x is in the card for Pulse, because you have to divide all that value up against all of the different things that have now been built on Pulse. You'd need to see wouldn't need to do technical analysis to know that stuff was coming. All you need to know is the adoption. So if you could just find the adoption chart, and as long as then we're exponentially putting on new users over the next, let's say, 3 years, then yeah, you can hit those numbers. What we need is users, more than anything, to really nail down like a 10,000x type situation. But do I think we need to see a 20x by April or May? I don't think we need to, and I don't think we will. I'm more of the mind that this might get up to a 200 to 300% move here on Pulse by that time frame, which would put us up near the all-time highs here. But it wouldn't need to be anything more. Right. This is the reason why I'm saying these things is because there's so much economic energy invested in Pulse and PulseX sack phases, and thusly everything else that came with it, that is waiting for a return. But in Hex, there was none of that. It was just you deposited ETH into an AA lobby, and the price was already performing, live every day in and day out. So if you were getting in on day 100 or 150 or 200, you're getting whatever the price was at that time. And this is like just a totally different situation where there's people that got in, and in many cases there's folks that got in early into these sacrifice phases that are still up. So they're selling like hex value at 5, 10, 15, 20 cents even today in pulse. You know, their pulse is worth a higher priced hex. So they're still, and for just food for thought, up here at the highs, folks were selling like $1 to $1.60 hex in pulse value.
Right.
And then you got to think too about like the ink rewards at $80 ink and like during this period and how much money was made there as well. There's a lot of money that gets made, but not enough of it comes back in. That's the issue that we had during these phases. But so once all those guys are made whole and like they're out and like they're happy with where things are for themselves individually, and all of the lettuce has been rinsed. And yeah, we're looking at, you know, we got to start being more modest. And I think this really calls on folks to have more belief now than ever and to really come in and buy bigger size and go longer at the lows, because that's really where these 300% moves on Pulse are going to actually be beneficial. And then once you get so for example, if you bought bags of hex at 5, 10, and 20 cents, let's say, over the last couple of years, but you never came back in again to buy Pulse down here or the hexes on their lows, then you're not going to obviously be happy with a 5x or a 10x.
Right.
But if we could get people in that frame of mind, then the multiples would come higher because they'd be holding on to their stuff because they'd have more tempered expectations of what's to come. So I think this is just a process, you know, and I think, you know, that's kind of the levels. First, we need to take out sack rate, which is going to be, I think we'll go somewhere between 0001 and 00012, somewhere in here. And then we'll probably chop sideways for a short period. Maybe we'll bleed some guys out, and then it's going to do a secondary pop up to here.
Yeah, towards all-time high.
I agree. I think once it hits that point, that sack level is going to be important because you know there's going to be people exiting at that point. So, but I also hopefully by then, like you said, there's enough adoption to help absorb a lot of it so that it doesn't hurt too bad.
And looks here at this point, it looks like most of the volume traded on this particular pair was down here at these. So we're doing all right, guys. Like we're not. If you break this level, you're going to be concerned. But right now, this is consolidation below resistance, which is a bullish thing.
Yep.
So this price here, you know, tapping into resistance, resistance, just hugging this line right now. It's like almost like playing possum is a good way to think of it. This was like a really well thought out price markup in price here that the market makers did during this frame. This was like, I think, 9 days of straight up, but no one was trying to push price like here. This was just smart absorption of weak hands every day consistently. And now, you know, a lot of that's out, and now it's just let time do its thing now. But this consolidation here is like the market makers are smart right now. And I think the chart's primed and ready for a move, but what's the rush? I think, you know, the loud ones on Twitter are rushing it, and then the smart market makers are like, well, we tried the fast thing here on eHEX, and it just got sold back down like to the 004 level. And now that you get that nice controlled price rise here, and it's doing it in a bullish pennant. And I think that the eHEX price looks ripe for like a big move. We might get another one of these, even though it's taken a little longer on Pulse. eHEX seems to be a driver in a lot of these situations. And I discovered a chart the other day. I don't know if I showed it to anyone yet, but you guys will be the first to see. I put the pi cycle bottom chart on the hex chart here. These two indicators. You can see that this signal came in here. It's signaled here by the cross of these two moving averages. And then another one came in here. And I don't know how deep I want to go into it, but moral of the story is Bitcoin only puts in one pi cycle bottom per cycle, but Hex got two. So you actually got a double bear market pi cycle bottom. And this is because of the doubling of the supply and the fork, right? So this cycle, this came in at a price of 007. So like I think this is the level to watch. Anything under that level in terms of buying is generational wealth opportunities.
Yep.
And as soon as we pop up above there, you can go straight to 2 cents. And then that's the start, like the bull market's starting, guys. Like this is an inverse head and shoulders pattern. You know, left shoulder, head, right shoulder, pop up above that. I mean, we can go take out 2 cents pretty quickly on a measured move.
You know, yeah, and you can see that with that green candle just right there. I mean, like the thin liquidity kind of within that range, you know, just bouncing right up. That does lead me to this, and I think a lot of people have been saying this and asking this because it did already happen once whenever we 2x up off the lows. But do you think that eHEX could look as if anyway, like could it lead the way in this ecosystem again as we do start to pop off again? I mean, just with what you've illustrated there, I mean, with how low we are and how easy it could be to shoot up, do you think we could see eHEX pump before everything once again, like we already did before?
It makes sense to me. The one thing that I look to kind of decide why would that be a good thing would be I use this uniswap.info to like look at the pools and see how much money is sitting overhead of price that needs to be bought up. And it looks like here on ETH, on the HEX ETH pair, there's 90 million HEX in this pool. And so this reads from right to left. So HEX price going up is from right to left. So this is all HEX sitting out here, waiting to be bought. But it's in this side of this range. I don't know. We can't calculate it off the top of my head here, but there's like 50 to 90 million HEX sitting in here, which in this price up here is, let's say 167,000 HEX per ETH, currently at 467,000 HEX per ETH. So what is that, like a 2 to 3x range here?
Three times, yeah.
So that would put you around that 2 cent range. This would give a market maker a chance to absorb a ton of the supply up here and then push it to the edge of these bands, and then which would then have the market have to readjust and put more liquidity out in front. So what happens was if we got this 3x in price on eHEX, that would give the 2 billion eHEX that's sitting on PulseChain triple the value. And that's important because when you look at the bridge, let's go Pulse is the website. When you look at the bridge, it gives people that's holding onto eHEX over on that side more firepower to buy into this ecosystem. So this $11 million sitting over there could potentially triple in value, which would increase this bridged in value by a ton. And then you could that economic value can virtually be transferred into like PulseX and the others. And then because they're all binded by their liquidity, then you could start to see that all these prices start to rise off the back of HEX getting pumped up on the other side.
Awesome. Looks like a good way to draw it up to me. Yeah, I mean, I go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, while you're talking about that, let's talk about your where does the liquidity lie? You made a nice little pie chart and posted it on Twitter. I don't know, about a week ago, probably. If you have it handy.
Let's see here. Wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, it was on the 28th, I think.
Okay, we're getting there. Where does the PulseChain, where does the value come from on PulseChain? You know what sparked this was I saw Funding Jim talking about how he didn't really understand, or he didn't really see the value in collateralizing your Pulse to create stable coins. You know, kind of like, I think he worded it somehow, paraphrasing, putting the chairs on the tables or something like that. Doesn't create more furniture or something like that. And I had to like kind of rebuttal that a little bit, because what the market needs to understand is that, you know, DAI is just Ethereum and wrapped Bitcoin being collateralized to create DAI. Mm-hmm. And so what makes that more or less real than the USDL we're creating here? We're able to pad the amount of value backing our network by over collateralizing it. And yeah, so let's just say, for argument's sake, that there's 20, 30, let's just say there's $40 million of stable coins bridged in, just for argument. And if that's real dollar value that backs the network, and that's all that backs it, then that seems like a pretty small network of liquidity, of dollar liquidity backing it. If you think about it from that really narrowed perspective, but in my opinion, it's the wrong way to look at it. What we're doing over here with liquid loans and Power City and these other protocols that allows us to virtually create dollar value here now off the 40 million that's bridged in. Now we're created an additional $27 million. You can see here, or it's 26 million USDL. It's kind of down here. It's really small, but that's how much dollar value we've created by collateralizing Pulse here on this chain. That's just as real to me as this DAI from Ethereum is. That's just
Sure.
the argument here is that, oh, because Ethereum is real crypto, or it's hit like escape velocity or critical mass of public acceptance. That to me isn't an excuse for why USDL doesn't apply as real stable value. And so I just think if you're at the ground floor and you're creating this stuff, yes, there's more volatility and more fun here because you're at the ground floor, you're creating value here on the chain. And so now this was on the 28th, and so this data might be a little old now, but USDL is about a quarter of all the value on the chain when you really lay it out like this. And I thought that was just amazing to get that visual.
Yeah, it's pretty cool how we've just kind of, and the first thing that made me wonder too was, well, how do we get, without bridging, how does this network gain more? Does it have to be bridged in? Or will this be able to do it? I mean, because you only have so much Pulse. You can only collateralize so much. You still need that outside force coming in to assist with it. But once you see a lot of the smaller coins popping off, does that really? I don't really know how to ask that.
Well, I agree with you.
You know what I'm saying?
I agree with you that there's only so much Pulse to collateralize. We got almost 1 trillion that's collateralized, and there's only, I think, 11 trillion user supply.
Right.
So let's, for argument's sake, 10% of all the Pulse that we could collateralize has been locked up, can't be sold, and is collateralized now.
Right.
Which is bullish, but what happens if you start to run out of that and you can't tap that anymore? Well, where's the new dollar value going to come from? It could come from something like eHEX rising in value on the ETH chain, and that virtually lends value to any existing eHEX that's bridged into Pulse chain. Okay. So if eHEX was to go up 10x and none of these other values changed, this is now $100 million of value that you could use to buy up the other assets. Right. So what I'm saying is, let's look at the eHEX versus Pulse chart, for example. So all that happened here was the ratios of eHEX to Pulse changed so dramatically that you could swap for 3 times as much Pulse up. Well, it's saying here 170%. So 2.7x as much Pulse you could get up here for an eHEX as you could down here. Which, if that money flowed into Pulse during this period, it pumped the Pulse price, right? Because it's you're selling your eHEX into Pulse, but this is lending more value to this network, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so if this thing does a 10x in price, then all that value can flow back into Pulse chain, and what you end up getting long term is this stair-step pattern of eHEX rising against Pulse, but this is going to drag Pulse up with it.
Right.
Right.
Okay. And I would suspect a couple other projects come over. I think once the Ethereum fees get out of control, we're going to see a couple of them. A couple of these communities come to play, which is also going to bring a lot of value as well. So,
waiting for the first one. That gets kind of on the topic of parity. I think Crow was getting close, and
oh wow, I didn't know that.
What was another one? Ewok, Crow, and I wouldn't be surprised to see something like one of the meme coin communities come over to play the game.
Wasn't it Shiba that just had? Well, there was one guy playing back and forth with 500 billion of them or something like that, bridged out and then bridged back in, and I was looking at that. I couldn't figure out what the heck they were doing. Maybe just seeing if it worked.
I think they were testing whoever was doing that. So I think what ended up happening there was somebody bridged P SHIB to Ethereum and then bridged the P SHIB back into PulseChain is what I think happened there.
Yeah.
And so what they're doing is they were testing the limit, the daily limit of value that can cross the chain. Is it 500? Yeah, I think it's 500 billion of units of a specific ERC20, PRC20 can cross the chain per day. It's just an arbitrary limit that's set in place on the bridge.
Right.
So they might have just been testing that out. Now we saw that with Comm on PulseChain for just to kind of explain what happened with Comm. Because this was a similar situation. We might see the SHIB guys or the Pepe, well, the SHIB guys in particular come to mind because of the amount of units of that coin.
Right.
But this here move was a 7,900% move in a day. When you look at it on like the hourly, it just like blows your mind. Turn off log. Yeah, so it just went straight up. And the reason why something like this was possible, like look at all that price action down there. It goes from doing this to then boom. It was like an 80x.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that was possible because there was a bridge limit, so people couldn't. Everyone was asking, "How do I bridge my communist from Ethereum over to PulseChain?" So they could dump it, right?
Right.
Because everyone's just looking for the exits right now, and but so then over time, of course, at that pump stopped, people were able every day that 500 billion ecom would come across the bridge, that 500 billion every single day, almost like I bet you could find that inside of these candles every day was at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. went the rollover.
Yeah.
7 p.m. at the, hold on, let me see here. What is that, 1900 hours?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you could go through here and every single day it would be roughly around that same time. There's 1700 hours, 1900 hours. I mean, there every time you can it's like clockwork. So, these guys, they're probably just testing to see, well, wouldn't it be an interesting strategy if somebody bridged across a bunch of native Ethereum SHIB and did it for like 60 days or 90 days and had this huge supply, and then they just started to dominate and control and corner that market and start to create parity over here. Wouldn't that be just interesting? Like, there's so many plays that ETH guys are probably don't know about, don't care about, or aren't thinking about.
Right. Well, see, that's the thing. I wonder what that catalyst will be. You know what I mean? Like, who will be somebody's going to figure that out. I mean, somebody in some community, I think, is going to figure that out and do it at some point. I mean, I remember right after PulseChain launched, I don't remember all the details of it now, being 8-7 months ago, but there was some stuff with Pepe early on. I remember like they're being pitched to, a lot of the meme coins early on and Pepe coming over and stuff. But you got to think that somebody on the ETH side is going to realize what the opportunity is at some point with something and bridge over. I guess it's just like, when will that happen? Is, the further we get into the bull market and with what community or what token,
Yeah, man. If I did know, I don't know if I'd want to say it, but I don't know what narrative's gonna spark, right? What's gonna be the thing that flips the switch?
Right.
Yeah.
If you're out there and you know it, you're not telling anybody about it. So
yeah. How about it? Yeah.
But yeah, to this, there was a comment here about DCC. Compton did a super chat and said DCC sees Pulse in the bull market close to 1 to 3 cents, which would have us up here. So this is basically a repeat of the Ethereum fractal. And at the time that I made this chart out, the Pulse price was in this zone right here. So it was basically saying continuation from that level, which we did not get. So you have to like readjust this fractal out to like where we're at here and start it here. However, it's fun to look at and to consider what that might look like, and look at how, if it does play out like Ethereum, we're going to spend some significant amount of time here in 2024 chopping between SAC rate and the all-time high before breaking out. And then when that move comes, if it's virality or SEC conclusion or whatever that narrative is, end of 2024, I mean, that price rise can go all the way up to, this is saying 004 on that first impulse, if it follows what Ethereum did, which would be pretty impressive, I would say.
Yeah, it definitely would. I think we would all take that at this point. That's 40x off of the SAC rate. So, yeah, definitely nice. And I think it would make sense, like you were just saying about oscillating between sack rate and the all-time high. I mean, don't you think we would have time to put in at those numbers? I mean, we haven't spent all that much time there, save for just after launch. I mean, it would really look good to consolidate in that range for a while.
Yeah. So this is, yeah, exactly. Something like this where we get up into here and then we just chop around, and then build up and then go end of the year. This is just out in this is August here. So, I mean, if you waited through the last 2 years on the HEX stuff,
what's 8 more months, right?
Exactly. Hopefully you don't have medical emergencies or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I think about a lot of times when I'm watching the community on Twitter. I'm like, when I see a big sell, it's like, yeah, it sucks, but you don't know what that person's going through. Like maybe they've been waiting for 3 years for a bull market and they're going to lose like a family member if they don't take this money out. It's like, you don't know. So it's hard to judge people so harshly on these kinds of things. It's investments, guys. It's not that serious. I mean, if you feel that emotionally about it, maybe you should take some off the table.
I agree with that. Yeah, and it's kind of a meme at this point anyway, of just like, shake out the weak hands. I mean, we don't know specifically what's going on with any single person unless you can track the wallets and see that they just perpetually dump or something maybe. But yeah, I'm with you.
Oh man, you're gonna get me start going into a deep rabbit hole of chain analysis pretty soon. You better watch it.
I welcome it. We have all night. We can go as far as we want. I tell you what, let's do that if you would like to. But before we do it, I just want to ask you real quick. Well, first off, everybody, if you are enjoying the stream so far, great stuff from Axis here tonight. Do us a favor and smash the like. We do this show every single Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to just zoom out for a minute, and I want to take you off your flow, but I just want to zoom out for a minute. I know you kind of maybe echoed some of this on your stream the other day, talking about the macro markets and everything. But looking at BTC and ETH, the greater crypto market, and then we'll tie PulseChain into it too, to kind of see where it could follow with BTC. But has your stance changed much? And actually, I'll let you fill in the blanks. Not that I know exactly what your stance is, but on how this bull cycle is going to look. You've been on record saying that you think that we could go into 2026 for new all-time highs, or at least the bull market continuing that long for BTC. How do you shape up the rest of this cycle right now for BTC, as well as how will PulseChain kind of move along with that, just if we go on a 2 to 3 year scale here?
Yeah, so I gotta give my nod to Sami here with this one, which was that I think that I've been seeing it the same way. It was just nice to hear somebody else say it, which was that the BTC thing is like going to lose a lot of volatility. I think the most bullish thing that's left to happen for Bitcoin is the ETF. And I suppose maybe we could look at this chart, which is like the, let's see here, pull this one up. Oh yeah, you might have to pull that one up. So this is the, there we go. This is when gold ETF was approved in 2003, and then it went on a 420% run in 8 years. That would have us basically up by March of 25 at an $87,000 top, and then a crash, which is basically where Sami's been saying, was like we go up to 80K, triple top. It's an effective triple top. Mm-hmm. There's also my friend Ryan, who I streamed with on Sunday, who's been calling for this. He watches this guy named Kuch Alameda on Twitter, who talks about this flat top correction and that this is the middle of the biggest wave, right? And then it's just going to go blow off and into 25, and then that'll end the cycle, which you could be seeing like 120K, 140K, and those are likely as well. I think for me, I think where my head is at right now is more like 80. I think triple top, honestly. I think a triple top, like a slightly marginally higher high, and then run it back down, and then really confuse the market between end of this year and mid next year. And then there's like a final wave that goes into late 25 or 26 that just is like a double bubble top, which would have us basically coming up here to like the 80K range, crashing back down, and then spending some sideways period and then going up. This here chart that I got in front of you this goes out to 2028, but yeah, hard to. I think if this is going to play out like this, 2024 has to have some sort of a local top in the market. Maybe we hit 80K this year. Maybe we hit 50, we go back to 30, and then it's just like a normal cycle, and then next year we go to 80 and it's over. Or maybe we go up before down and we go up to like 80 triple top, and then we come back to 30. And then that would really imply that longer extended cycle with a double bubble top going into 26. It's all speculation. I don't have a crystal ball on that. We'll know more. Like, I think the ETF really throws like a wrench in the plans. I don't know how that's going to play out, but if it plays out like gold did, you're basically going to get one chance to sell the peak of the rally within the next 8 years, and then it's sideways for a decade, right? That's what we have to look forward to for Bitcoin, is one final leg up and then sideways for a decade. And then the whole entire market is going to turn over. And you're going to see so many people capitulate out of cryptocurrency over the next decade that it's going to freshen up the market and give it a second wind to push for another 15-year cycle like this, but it's after a decade of sideways. So it's like I'm looking at it on a really long term.
Yeah.
But in terms of this cycle, there's going to be a chance to sell at higher prices on Bitcoin. And I think the amount of money that's going to flow in from institutional interest is going to give altcoins an amazing run. And you know what I'd love to see out of all this during that 10 years of sideways is the RH, PulseChain, and eHEX stuff get global adoption and get accepted, and completely decouple and decorrelate itself, true DeFi, away from the centralized, institutionalized cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum and stuff, and just to go off on its own and do its own thing. And maybe it can just overperform the whole decade, kind of like some of the tech stocks did while everything else was down in the 2000s.
That's a really good point, and it's something that's been interesting to me because, if we are starting to see, I mean, the only people really calling for like ridiculous prices on BTC this cycle, like $700,000 by Arthur Hayes, or just some of this other kind of likely maniacal stuff that we're hearing out there. We are seeing less gains with BTC. It's going to continue to diminish over time. But the other thing is too, like, we only all know what we know. We only know the history of this market. We know like the past 15 years. We know the 4-year cycles, the way that they've been, and we look at that as gospel. But we've also seen this as the wild, wild west so far, and that's slowly lessening, over time. We're seeing, like you just said, with PulseChain, just the pack of DeFi there with PulseX and eHEX and everything. And legitimate better products being built than in like 2017, obviously. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think there's a huge opportunity for like these real sectors within crypto to break out and be sustainable. We're seeing something like Chainlink as being like the premier oracle, and it's going to put, Polkadot to bed, and, other solutions that were kind of similar to it. So do you think we continue to see more of that? Just more, there's always going to be degen in crypto, but I mean, more, real products that are going to withstand the test of time. And I guess specifically with PulseChain, now that we've looked at the BTC 4-year cycle and where you think it could go, just spitballing it, I mean, where do you think we could see PulseChain go over this cycle anyway, as far as possibly topping out, and how that could kind of go after that? Because I see what you're saying, like it decorrelating being an actual real DeFi option in a land where, like you said, it's going to be more centralized stuff and more corporate money flowing in to kind of ruin the price, volatility of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, to us it's ruined because all the opportunity gets zapped out. But to institutions, they're going to be happy because they're going to get to play with something that has more liquidity, which is what they're accustomed to, but can still do 100, 200% swings in like a 5 or 10 year period, right? So it's fun for them. It's fun for, but for us, I think we're looking for a little more meat on the bone. Yeah, I mean, this was like just ETH on top of PulseChain here. I like I said, I'm looking for like a 50x, maybe 100x off PulseChain. Those are pretty, easy numbers to think of. With adoption rates rising, if people are willing to understand and adopt DeFi and use it, it could start just with social acceptance of PulseChain and eHEX as tools that are valuable and here to stay. And what would cement that would be smart whales stepping in. Doesn't have to be a lot of them, just a few of them with really deep pockets to mark up the price of this stuff initially, and then all the other like original users, like all the ETH guys and all the guys on the other chains, they would come over to play the game.
Yeah.
So then once that adoption curve starts to tick up, then we could start to see some of these higher prices like penny or 3 cent Pulse chain. This is measured against Ether, so it's, I don't know what 4 O's and a 3 would be, but let's see. In dollar terms, there's another thing going on during all this too, guys, which is like the end of the dollar dominance in the world, and there's like this 40-year plan to reduce like dollar exposure from other nation states, and I mean it's just an interesting time to be alive, really.
That's a word for it. Yeah, I think over the last few years, it's definitely been interesting. But I mean, obviously, we feel like we're in the right place. Like what option, if you are somebody who really wants to make it, in the United States of America right now, over the next decade, over the next 15 years, where else would you rather be? In terms of your investments, where else are you going to put it? There's nowhere else I would rather have it.
I think we also need a bunch of education too, though. I mean, there's a lot of, like you said earlier, there's a lot of degens out there. We need to be more responsible, teach people how to do the limit orders, so we're not wrecking our own prices. With thin liquidity like we have right now, obviously that'll get better as the charts get better as time goes on. We build liquidity, it gets stronger, but we still need to be responsible too and teach people how to set limit orders when it's not as easy as it is over on Ethereum side, to do it on Pulse Chain. So, we have to take a little responsibility there too.
Yeah. Perfect segue, dude, for me. This is what I do is like, I try to educate folks. I would say like generally the stuff I'm doing for like my members and my website is teaching them like the whole platter, like from liquidity providing to how to properly buy and sell. Obviously, setting limit orders is obviously a piece of it, but really it's the tripartite, right? Chain analysis, liquidity provision, and technical analysis, and making that connection for everybody so that they can really understand the market from like a market maker's point of view, so they can see what's going on in the market better. But with that comes with all the technical stuff, like how to use a wallet, how to have good security in a hardware wallet, how to even just use different dApps, what's safe, what's not safe. There's just like, it's such a steep learning curve, and so many folks have lost so much money that keeps people out of it, I think, with DeFi. Even in the beginning of Pulse, one of the huge limiters in terms of adoption was like not having the bridged in contracts available in public everywhere someone could see them easily. So people were confused, like, oh, is this the real USDC or the fake one? Is this the real DAI from Ethereum or the fake one? Like, I don't know all these contracts. I have to copy and paste in the PulseX, and there's bad UI. There's not like logos on everything, so it's nice and clean. But what's cool is like with Pulse Chain is all these new dApps are coming online, and they all have their stuff more ironed out, and everything's it's people are building here, and that's really bullish is how much is being built. So yeah, the education piece is like literally the most important thing. Like I heard a hex shark texted me today and was like, I'm going to send this message out to some no coiners. And basically the gist of the message was, this guy put in $175 into this cryptocurrency. He's looking to take out $400,000 in 3 years. Let me know if you want to be a millionaire, if you want $1 million portfolio. And it's like, just that statement alone is so daunting. Like who's going to believe a no coiner off the street, regular Joe kind of guy is going to believe that that's even possible? Like that, there's so much context that's missing, and that's such the wrong approach to get people in. That's just going to run people off. Yeah. Even if they're your friends, like family and friends are the hardest to get it, because most of us are half crazy. You know what I mean? Like, so it's tough. It's a tough sell, but I think funneling people to the right. That's why Richard was so good, was because it's easy for him to talk to a lot of types of personalities for them to understand it in an easy way. Yeah. And so bridging that gap is a huge piece of the puzzle. But technically, foundationally, fundamentally, Hex and Pulse have everything they need to do better than Bitcoin did in terms of price performance. We just need everything else worked out. Like the brash community needs to simmer down. We need more work onboarding folks and teaching them the right tools and education. If we can nail that stuff down, like we already have a movie, and there's a part two
Right.
probably going to come if the price ever goes up. So,
Right.
I mean, we
Yeah.
have like a lot of things in place, and I'm that's what makes me bullish. If you're bearish right now, you're just impatient.
Yeah, I agree. This community has done more than any other, actually probably more than most of them combined. The things that we have and the things that we've done and sponsored a NASCAR, and yeah, it wasn't that successful, but now it's in a game. We have a documentary that's out and on several different platforms, about to be more probably, and see it globally. It's just crazy. When you sit back and look at this overall, it's pretty incredible what we've done in 4 years. Isn't that long? So
Very
pretty
true.
cool.
And I agree with you, Axis, about like wanting the community to calm down. I mean, that's one of those things for now where it's like wish in one hand, shit in the other kind of thing. I don't really
Right.
know how easily that's going to happen. I think with time, though, as much as everybody is running out of patience, I do think with time that may happen. I mean, these fly by night type of people that are just out for quick gains and everything, they will exit when the time is right. They are exiting when the time is right, and we're seeing it right in front of our eyes. I mean, something I might, this is a good segue, I'll just mention this, and we did have a decent bit of other stuff to get to. I want to make sure we do. We want to talk Hedron and Icosa a little bit with you, but I feel we can say this with confidence now because the actual staker app did just tweet this out. So we were talking about what was going on with them and him prior. You alluded to it in the green room, but I just posted in the chat. So the staker app actually tweeted, it's been an amazing adventure, but we're in the process of shutting down the staker company and the mobile app. In a few days, the app will be replaced by a user-friendly web interface so that users can end their stakes, hopefully when matured, and then send their tokens to any other accounts. Remember, your funds were never in the app. We know that. Obviously, it's just an app to track your stakes. It's been a pleasure to serve 150,000 users over the past 3 years, and we're glad to see that Hex Pulse community has grown tremendously, blah, 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 blah. And then just kind of a summary of what happened there. So what do you guys make of that? And then I'll tiptoe around this one, but I mean, we've seen unsubstantiated, I believe, tweets about somebody who may or may not be affiliated with that app that has been selling out of certain Hex positions and possibly like wiping their social media and things like that. So I don't know how much you want to get into that, but we do have that official from the staker app anyway. So I'll give you first, Axis.
I think props to the team over there. They pioneered a lot of the tools that we use even till today, like Hex.vision for seeing the future market supply, the original Hex Live website, which we all wonder why that ever got taken down. The original staker app was amazing. That helped onboard a ton of people into this, and was easy for all of the folks that I had gotten interested in Hex for them to see their stakes maturing and stuff as they came along. And they somewhere along the road, the ball got dropped, and it's okay that happens in business. And I think just the passion wasn't there anymore for one reason or another. Who knows? But you got to give credit where credit is due for starting it, and it's perfectly on time because now we have the new tool in Hex Scout to pick up where they left off, and that tool is amazing. And I'm sure it'll come with competition from others as well. So it's going to continue being a story of the better product will come to serve and win.
I agree. What do you make of it, Ewok? Because Axis is right. I mean, the original staker app, I think we all agree that the new one, suffers from a lot of stuff. And maybe that was kind of indicative of what was to come here. But the original, I loved. I know you did too. But yeah, what do you make of this story overall?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it definitely set the tone for the beginning. There were so many people that were, if we could count how many times their staker app was screenshotted throughout the bull market, I think you'd be surprised. And remember, when you start doing that next time, maybe take a little off the top. But the only thing that really upsets me about it is I know there were a lot of people that didn't get paid for referral fees. I know there was substantial amounts to some people that they're probably not going to get now. Maybe, I don't know. That's a speculation. But yeah, I'm excited for what's to come. I think Hex Scout is definitely a cool tool. I'm sure GoPulse has done something very similar, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple others popping up as well.
I agree. Yeah, good shout out on Hex Scout by both you guys. I definitely enjoy it. And GoPulse has been legendary. It'd be cool if they did implement some kind of actual staking tracking like that. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. I will say, I think this is one of those things, one way or another. I mean, maybe this was coming for a while, but it does seem like one of those things where if you zoom out on this time frame right now, it wasn't the worst time to buy. That's just kind of my, not that we didn't already think that, but it definitely feels that way with this news coming down. So, all right, let's transition to this. So you did mention at the top of the show, Hedron and Icosa, when we were looking at that correlation to, I guess it was to Pulse, yeah, at the top of the show axis. So I these have fallen asleep, and everybody, I think the consensus is people love Hedron and Icosa. Everybody loves Alex McWhorter. And obviously he's kind of gone away working on something really exciting. And I'd like to get actually your thoughts on what that exactly could look like. I know we aren't necessarily privy to that, so I don't think, but something to combine the Hedrons, the Icosas on both chains possibly, and maybe something with staking them and or hex on both chains, or one hex on the other chain, or vice versa. First off, what do you, both of you guys, one at a time, know about, or how could you fill in the blanks on what he may be doing with that? And then let's actually look at Hedron and Icosa charts, if you would, and just have a huge conversation about them, because Icosa is really interesting, because I think that's the one that's actually been at parity, and I think the Ethereum version has actually surpassed the Pulse version a couple of times. So first off, Axis, what do you make of what Alex has in the works, and what do you think he could be doing with these?
So it seems, well, so in terms of the price action, the market has definitely forgotten about these two assets mostly, I would say. And so, because like we were saying before, based on that correlations we brought up earlier, because they're not being traded so heavily and the volumes are kind of low, you can see like $5,000, $6,000, $3,000, and these are 3-day intervals. So over 3 days, people are trading $5,000-$6,000 the whole market of this coin. It makes sense why they're highly correlated with Pulse, is because they're just floating up and down with whatever Pulse is doing, right? And so what that's done is that both of the prices on both chains are trending toward the same levels. I'm just going to use Hedron here as an example. Here's Hedron on in dollar terms on Ethereum, the red line here, and here's the price on Pulse. So the difference here is about, it says 9.7%, but if you just put like a $3,000 buy through, this would pop this right up to near parity. So it's like, in terms of liquidity, they're basic, for all intents and purposes, they're practically the same price.
Right.
Under no trading volume. And then in terms of like, so the market's already forward looking and seeing like, hey, this is fair value for this thing. And in terms of what Alex might be building, there's, you hear about rocket pool forks, you hear about a lot of this stuff that he had listed out in that like 4 stages of growth for this thing. I think the fact that you can redeem Hedron on either chain for the HMI staked hex instances is going to bring it's doing what we're seeing in the price already, which is they're going to have this effectively the same dollar value at least, which I think is cool to see that the market's pricing that in already. And what it does is it's the first time, at least in the hex ecosystem, that they're, instead of there being competing tokens on 2 chains, like he's trying to bring them all under one umbrella to unify the system. And wouldn't it be poetic if Alex Synergy unifies the Icosa, the hex system with Icosa Hedron V2, right? Where it's like basically no matter if you're trading eHedron or pHedron, it's effectively the same asset with doubled supply.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be awesome. Yeah, I really want to see it. I mean, like, that was we all remember, we're fond of the early days after Pulse Chain launched, when the only argument was just eHEX and pHEX parity and all that. How far we've come away from that. But yeah, it would be very interesting to see Alex kind of spearhead that vibe throughout the whole ecosystem. Ewok, is there any other ideas you have about how he could be doing that, or what his plans are with those?
No, but I think if it's successful, I would love to see something similar with Hex. I'd like to bring that together as well. So, but no, I don't have any other ideas. I have no idea what when Alex is quiet, he, I'm sure he's building. I know they wanted to get something, wasn't it? They wanted something released by the end of the year or very close to it. Was that? Do you know? Access?
I don't really. Yeah, I don't really remember.
I remember that he was talking about Q1 and Q2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did want to have it. I think it's coming. I would expect to hear something by Q2. And he usually doesn't talk about it till it's almost ready. So
right.
Maybe we can look at that time frame, which would be, there's a couple of key dates in Hex. January 5th is typically a good time for Hex price wise. And in April's are always a significant time. Basically that window between March and May, like that's where Hex has always made its biggest moves ups or down. So that's going to be a sweet time frame there. That Q2 is really where everybody's got their attention focused at. I think short term we have the Hex conference coming up this weekend, that's usually followed by some sort of price action. Last year it was a big pump, 700% pump that led through March. This year, who knows what it's going to be, but then after that's kind of settled, dust is settled, then we can look to Q2 as being pivotal for Hex as a whole, but then also with whatever Alex has got brewing up over there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
I think that'll be awesome, but just more, since obviously your expertise is kind of more like the TA side of things. I mean, I do think that Hedron and Icosa are just great leverage kind of on Hex right now. I mean, what do you think the opportunity is there with both of them at the moment? Like, are you don't have to answer whether you're DCAing into them, but
my favorite thing price wise here on Hedron is like, look at this move here back to all time high. That's that's like a 50x. So if you're waiting for like the 50 to 100x on Pulse, well, you really know that it's possible here because nobody's talking about this one. This is off everybody's radar, and it's putting in a double bottom right now, or it's trying to, right? So it's got the single, here's the double bottom, hoping that maybe some good news comes out to give it a little spark of life. But the dollar chart looks pretty beat up on Hedron. So, yeah, I kind of gave you the upside possibilities, 50x totally in the cards. I think that this breakdown from here was kind of just characteristic of the fork and the drop in Hex on eHEX price and stuff, that's deeply undervalued as well, as we've shown a double pi cycle bottom. But when you measure this thing in Hex terms, it's actually not at all-time lows. It's actually up.
Wow.
Quite a bit, actually. It's up 340% from the double bottom of last June. Or it would be, 2 Junes ago, or 2022.
22, yeah.
Yeah. So this to me is like this range-bound price action inside of here is like maybe last call. Before this thing starts to heat up.
And, that's a good point of that, too, is, I don't even know that we can look at Hedron and or Icosa as cycle 2 coins because, I mean, Hedron launched March of 2022, correct?
Correct.
I mean,
February 24th that week, so it was the week going into March.
Right. So basically when the world was burning. I mean, when the whole cryptocurrency, everything was going to shit. Yeah. So I think I saw a cut up. I think it was you. I assume it was since you just brought that up. But I saw a cut up clip from Kaisa, whatever it is, on Twitter the other day with you talking about that. And yeah, I mean, I think there's crazy leverage opportunities with both of those right now, Hedron and Icosa. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see. Do you think right now we're just kind of seeing it not move much because people are just, and admittedly, this is what I've really done. I haven't really DCA'd much of it yet. I'm warming up to the idea of it, though, and I've really just been rolling the stakes over. You know what I mean? I think that's what most people are doing. Yeah.
If you're sitting on Watsas or Icosa Hedron stakes, you're just claiming, compounding, and rolling.
Right.
And you've been doing that the whole time. I did actually go back and buy some eHedron the other day. And it was my first purchase of eHedron in a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
And now that we're talking about it, expect Hedron to pump a little bit now. It won't go straight up, but it doesn't take any economic energy to push this thing up. And whether you're getting it on Pulse or on Ethereum, you always just want to get the cheaper one, because once that V2 goes live, they are going to get closer and closer in price due to their utility. So I think net it's looking good.
Something else that we were talking about too that nobody else was really doing. I mean, the cost of the HSIs at auction, you can pick up so many T-shares for cheap. And I just think it was so undervalued, and nobody was using it for the longest time. And I don't know.
Dude,
you were
Ewok. There was a guy in my group that was buying. Don't quote me on this exact number, but something saying I'm pretty sure he bought hex through HSIs at the equivalent of what was 1/10 of a penny hex. I know for sure that he was getting the cost for him to get the Hedron from the market and to buy the HSIs. He was getting them at like 85 to 90% off market value.
Right.
And that would have been going on, I want to say it was either in May, June time frame when we had that crash on eHEX down to a penny. That's when, Hedron was completely off the map, crashing in price, and it was a huge opportunity. Let's see here if I can find this. I got to see the chart again so let's look at it here. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so he was getting them for like you're saying 85, 90% off.
Yeah.
During this time frame here. Would have been June. So what is that? Let's just take a candle close here, minus 90%. Oh shit, I can't get my scales even farther. He was getting these things for, this is saying 0.0008. So, but in reality, I think it was closer to 1 to 2/10 of a cent. Yeah. And isn't that ironic that the market came down and got close to that price?
Yeah.
So is there not more power in Hedron and Icosa than the market can really see right now to price forward how the market's actually feeling about the ecosystem as a whole? Remember, they're all derivatives of Hex T-shares. Yeah, so you would make sense that they would actually trade fundamentally somehow in line with the rest of the system.
I think there's a lot of signs pointing to them right now. I think it's like and it's one of those things where you totally understand people not buying them right now, because I mean the assets everybody wants are Pulse, PulseX, Hex, and they are so ridiculously depressed. Why would anybody be thinking about Hedron or Icosa? But now that we're making this uptrend a little bit, I mean, as small as it may be, a 2x off the lows, really. I think we're getting to the time where throwing some tickets into that area might be a good thing to do.
So here's our correlations matrix.
Yeah.
The Hedrons and Icosas on both chains, they're pretty much 1-to-1 tracking each other. And then next up is PulseX and Pulse. And then Inc. And so that's not even tracking Hex as much as it is the other things. So
crazy. Yeah,
so
it's more
they're
correlated.
It seems like they're really tracking that PulseX, which it's explained by what we've said before about the low market volume, and that most of the interest is in Pulse and PulseX. So if Pulse and PulseX are going to pump, it's going to pump them along with it, just due to their bonded liquidity.
Right.
Yeah. The last thing I really had here, I mean, we were going to get into like some BTC ETF stuff and some of the news around that, but frankly, this is. Yeah, I don't care. I don't think anybody else does, and this is all far more interesting. We haven't mentioned PulseX like at all tonight, so we haven't talked about PulseX at all, and I think that kind of like the Hedron and Icosa thing we're talking about is a sign that I think we have reached pretty much the lows, at least on sentiment with PulseX, as far as people thinking about it. When you were on last time with us last year, we had a great conversation about is the PulseX depression in price just as simple as way too many people sacked for it? And yes, really was the answer. It's just kind of a mathematical equation. How many people sacked for PulseX and how much money was sacked for it compared to PulseChain? And that's kind of why we've seen it where it is. But at this point, we've seen sentiment around it just like die so much. You know, people wanted the single-sided staking and that didn't happen. And now they're not even thinking about the buy and burn. They're not paying attention to it anymore. It's just like some other empty decks is kind of the narrative. What's the case for it being one of the best buys in the ecosystem right now? I mean, I think you could pretty much throw a dart and be okay, really. But yeah, I'd like to check out that chart if you could, and just kind of give me your thoughts on PulseX right now.
So here it is. This is Pulse valued in PulseX. But what do you notice? Since September, Pulse has been losing value to PulseX for 111 days now.
Wow.
It's down 11%. So your intuition is correct that this was just so steeply undervalued, and now it's actually starting to take off. We'll flip the chart back over in a second to show you from the other angle, but this is there's a clear trend here where this is like a supply line. This is supply being absorbed up by market makers or people buying it, DCing in, and it just hasn't been able to rise back above that trend line now for over 111 days. And the most volume that was ever traded on this chart here was down here at this ratio of 2.4 to 1. So then you could think of maybe this is like the magnet zone. So this is really wants to come back to here for sure. But if it gets above, in this terms, if it gets below this level and gets rejected, it's going back to this level at some point, right? When, I don't know. But in the immediate term, let's flip this chart back over. We're bottoming. Pulse. This is PulseX versus Pulse. We're bottoming. It's a double bottom. It's another same. I just shown you the same thing, but flip back over. The bullish cross came in on December 15th here on the MACD, and then the MACD line is starting to move away from the signal line. So it's the blue line moving away from the orange line, which means that, and these are deep green MACD bars coming in. So that means that it's real new volume pick coming in to pick up, and it looks like it's in a pennant to me, just offhand here. And it's gonna maybe bust out the top and go, and then try to take out, come back and test this level here, which was like the second most highly traded level based on volume. That's 0.3 pulse per unit, so it's 3 to 1. So I think this level is the level to watch, 3 to 1. You could get back, in terms of pulse, you could get back 20% more pulse by catching this trade here. Or, and the other way of looking at it is you're going to lose less pulse value by riding this up with a portion of your bag.
Well, we lost broke boy.
Oh, his internet went out again. Son of
a. That's all right. He'll be back, I'm sure.
He's really just going off to quick buy some PulseX.
Yeah, I think that's what he did. He signed off and going to make a buy real quick.
Yeah, he'll be right back.
What is the ratio right now? You said you're looking at 3 to 1.
Right now, the ratio is 3.6.
3.6 to 1.
PulseX per pulse. And I think it was 3.69 not too long ago. Yeah, right over here before this red candle print. So, yeah, 3.6 to 1. And again, 3 to 1 makes sense to me. 2 to 1 would be like the lower range here. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say we're going to go to 2 to 1 anytime soon. That would be like a 43% drop in pulse value, or conversely a huge gain, 80% gain over pulse. I think. Let's see if my math's right. Yeah, 77.8%. So that's kind of what I'm seeing in this is like this trend holding for so long. It already broke down once before. That was when Pulse got really bullish. Remember?
Yeah.
And we had this move here. That was a lot of money flowing into the ecosystem. You can see by the volume bars here how big they get versus all these other bars. By the way, that makes me realize I'm having like ADD moment here. These volume bars, they're trending down. So like the price is like climbing and grinding and consolidating as this volume comes down a little bit, which usually precedes a breakout. Usually the volume trends down leading into a big breakout move, which is what happened here.
There's a term for that. What is that? Is that bullish divergence or something like that? Is that what that's called? No.
if so
when the
if
volume goes
if
down and the
if volume was going down and the price was going up, it would be bearish divergence. And if
bearish
price was going down and the volume was going up, it would be bullish divergence. But this just chop sideways here that I'm seeing is this fundamentally what all I'm saying is that if price can hold, maintain, go stabilize and go sideways as volumes trend down, it's building up pressure like a pressure cooker.
gotcha.
And it's especially true of how a lot of these bars have been green volume bars, and the red volume bars are a lot smaller than the green ones that came in to push it back up, basically. And a good example of this was actually here on the Axis chart recently, where we had like green volume bars just coming in for the last few weeks, and this thing ran up 580% against the dollar. And then today we had a massive sell candle down, and this is the highest red volume bar we've seen since this green volume bar here.
Yeah.
When this red came in, and then this bullish engulfing reversed the price. So, unless another big green bullish engulfing candle comes in to reverse price here, this would be a level to look for a reversal on this chart, because of the volume, the divergence in volume.
Well, I just bought some. That's why.
I figured that's what we said. You signed off so you could go make a quick buy.
I heard you.
Let's go.
But yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I've been looking at. Yeah, I mean, just sentiment wise and everything. Yeah, I think it looks great right now. People are just taking a big shit on it. So what do we got here from Philly? Philly
has a good question. It says, Axis, how do you see the buy and burn over the next 5 years? As that percentage grows, do you see the price growing big over time? And shout out to Comm for the super chat. We'll get to you next.
Well, let's look at the data.
So we're up over 3% of the tokens burned already.
Yeah, dude. So the longer it stays down here, doesn't it burn more PulseX per day? Pretty sure. Especially if we kept low prices and we got a lot of volume. So if everyone just didn't buy PulseX,
right.
I mean, it would burn even more. But the buy and burn is as effective as there are transactions on the network, right? So the way that it's going to work over the next 5 years is during the bull markets, when you get peak euphoria, the most should get burnt based on transaction volume. But if the price goes high enough, it might be kind of like neutral, right? Where you're just going to burn a shitload anyway, but it's not going to be as much as you burnt down here type of thing. But yeah, I could, if this is any sign of things to come, 3%, let's say per, how old is the network now? Since May, June?
8 months.
May 12th.
So let's say we do 3.5% per year. By the end of the bull market, we could have 10 to 15% of the supply burned away.
Wow.
And that's like what, 3-4 years from now, you could be sitting at 10 to 15%, and that's just based on these numbers, right, that we're seeing here. Mm-hmm. And if the adoption goes in bananas and PulseX volumes go through the roof, why wouldn't this get an uptick in burning? Then the other thing I wanted to say was the burning on this is really reliant on V1 with the old parameter, the broken parameter. So what we need to see here for even more burn is ink to go crazy to make people lock up more money into the farms and use that V1 protocol, because the V2 PulseX does not buy and burn as much percentage points, but the V1 burns like more than it's supposed to. At least that's the way it was. I don't know if it's been changed. So you'd want to see more liquidity shift to V1 to keep up with this rate as well. So more transactions and more incentives from the farms, which that can change during a bull market. The admins at PulseChain are going to be freaking diving into all these things and creating farms for different reasons to incentivize more buy and burn. I'm sure that's just how it would make sense to bring on all the cool functionality and utility at the peak amount of transactions per day and stuff like that. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because people do forget. I mean, this far out, maybe they weren't even around back then, but whenever Pulse did launch, we had all these different farms. People got upset when the eHEX, pHEX farm got taken down and everything. We had a lot going on, and many have been pulled, and ink is so low that people don't really care. So, yeah, when there's stuff going on, man, to see that casino, the doors just open back up again will be phenomenal for sure.
Ink has kind of been a fun one, hasn't it? It's been.
I saw you tweeted you replied. I think it was
that.
to Katie. I saw a reply from you the other day, or to somebody about Ink right now. Yeah, what are you thinking about Ink?
Just about like, let's see if I click on leagues. Yeah, I mean, right now you can be a shark for $11,000 at this price, which is, I mean, yeah, not everyone's got 11. If a lot of folks watching the show maybe that are or out there that are just getting in, you're not going to want to put your 11 grand into Ink, but for whales or like big players that already have big crypto bags to snap up a shark position now, you'd have to pay, maybe think of it like this, to get you to buy your time back in terms of inflation over the next year. You'd want to buy like $20,000. You want to get like 30 or 40,000 Ink, because of the inflation rate being, consistent.
Chopped. Yeah.
So you're basically being forward thinking, and then that actually just gives you more to dump later anyway, if we're being honest. But then you could put that to work in the farms. Ink against PulseX would be like a good pair, I think, is because I don't know what it's paying out anymore. It's probably not as good as it once was, but as long as you can get that position now and then just let that churn for you on the two underperformers, just let the two underperformers churn more coins for you until the big move comes. Because I think Ink and PulseX they tend to piggyback off whatever Pulse is doing anyways. So you might as well just let them farm for you while you're waiting for this to do what it's going to do.
And it's the only one that doesn't have an OA.
That's true. I did say that. It is the only one that does not have an OA. So is that indicative of why the price did what it did? That's what I'd look at it as, is like, what happens if the OA comes in and snatches up the whole supply? Right. And then what are you going to do?
Would certainly be interesting.
They're going to be hard to get.
Yeah.
Especially, as a year or two go by, it's going to be, they're harder and harder. Less of them are printed every year. I don't think many people know about that inflation model, So.
Yeah. So when let's see here, I'll get my drawing out quick. We finish up on this. So if Ink inflates at a consistent rate, this is year one, this is year two, this is year three. Well, in year one, you're going to get 100% inflation rate. It's going to go from 0 to 100. And then the next year, based on the total supply that's existing from year one, you're only going to inflate the supply by 50%. And then on year three, based on this total supply, you'd have 33%. Right? So then it goes down, 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 down as time goes on. So the prices are going to be the lowest when there's the most supply on the market, which should be sometime in the first year. And then you had the crash down, hyperinflation, and then the sideways, and then it starts to build up, and then it has a new cycle, and then it crashes again. But every time it's going to create price floors like this, is how I perceive it going. And less of this supply is going to get printed into the future, right? Because these bottoms are going to get scooped up by the believers or the rich guys that just are going to accumulate it all and create a price floor.
Yeah, they're going to set the floor. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So we always got to look back to Bitcoin. What worked for that? There's a lot of truth in that chart. And so yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, it's definitely another one right now. We're talking about a lot of weird little opportunities tonight that there may be out there as things start to heat up. Which I'm really digging.
This one, you guys, communists.
Teddy bear. Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, we can take a look at Teddy. Well, that one's already moving. I was
messing with you. Yeah,
the secret.
You guys, I'm not even
He's
kidding.
On it.
Teddy bear, don't fade this one. At a minimum, it's gonna break the all-time high. We're going up here. 333% from here. At a maximum, it could do like a 50,000% move.
Ooh.
Like 25,000% there at the 1.272. The reason why that's possible is because of B Roots and his following. That's it. Like he's got enough sway that
Right.
If he decides that he wants this to happen, he can make this happen, like one way or another. At least for 300.
Trump about it. I think Trump bought Teddy Bear.
Oh, I'm pretty sure he did. That's what I heard.
You're
But
probably right though.
but no, like this one. Like, so let me delete this out. This is communist on PulseChain, and this sell that came in right here. So dude, there was a sell the other day on communist, right? So basically the way you get Comm is from you stake your hex, and when you stake your hex for like longer than a year, you can get some Comm the day that you stake your hex.
Mm-hmm.
But 75% of that Comm gets pushed out to the end until the stake matures.
Right.
So you really can only get 25%. It's kind of like, you think of it like a coupon. Like you can stake $1,000 a hex and get $100 worth of Comm, but you can only get $25 today. So you get like a little bit back. And the higher this price goes, the bigger the coupon rate gets. But in terms of right now, what's been going on in this price chart, let's just look at what happened so far on this chart. It went up a total of 33,500%. So that means you could have got 330x more hex if you bought $100 down here and sold it at the top. You could have bought 330x more hex if you sniped that.
Wow.
But I don't think many people was trading it during that time frame, because the total volume traded all the way through here was like $26,000. So half this run was done with very little amount of money. So like the first 660% was done with 26 grand. And then the following 40 days, there's $134,000 over for 4,400% from that level. So this is where like bigger whales started to step in to push this chart up. But the comms are interesting because there's a lot of units. There's like 96 quadrillion currently in the supply. Well, this thing came down 99% now on this wick, but got bought right back up. So now it's only down 91%. Okay, so what am I trying to say here with this comm opportunity? Most of the inflation that's coming is pushed out a really long time. So a guy that stakes for 15 years gets 50 times more Comm at the maturity date than a guy that stakes for 1 year gets. 50 times more. So it's really pushed out on the back end in terms of like new supply. So if this supply is getting bought up by whales now, there's a possibility for this thing to go a lot higher. And in the short term, what just happened was somebody came in and sold 1.94 quadrillion. That's a lot of trillions. It's like 1,000 trillions. That's 2,000 trillions. It sold 1.94 quadrillion of these things and nuked the price down like 89%. And then it got bought right back up 800%. Now, most of the liquidity for this isn't on PulseX. It's on PHUX. I think there's like $50,000 of liquidity over there. So when you're trading this coin, make sure you're using Pitius to trade it. Because, or some other aggregator, Internet Money Wallet, or one of the other ones, because otherwise you're going to be slipping the price up a lot harder because there's only $700 liquidity on PulseX. So if you're using PulseX to do it, not going to be good. Not going to be a good time. Okay. Now this is the interesting part. Now that I got all that context out of the way, this guy sold 1.94 quadrillion, which the equivalent of what it would cost in order to stake hex to get that amount of Comm. If you staked, you'd have to stake 7.1 billion hex, 7.1 billion hex for 1 year to get 1.94 quadrillion Comm. So this was like a hyperinflationary moment that the market saw, and they snapped the price back up, and they bought that 2 quadrillion back.
Wow.
So it would take 7.1 billion hex staked for 1 year to get this as the start bonus. And that's
just as the start bonus,
for the start bonus, not the end bonus. Okay. It would be $70 million of hex you'd have to stake for 1 year to get the 2 quadrillion Comm for $5,000 of value. So you're telling me that there's someone sold $70 million 1 year stakes worth of Comm starter bonus for $5,000. That's how undervalued Comm is right now.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Well, that could have also been their entire bag from ending stakes this whole time, right?
Correct. But there's only 94 quadrillion or 96 quadrillion, and the guy dumped 2 quadrillion, so he dumped over 1%, or 2% of the supply on the spot.
Gotcha.
Right. So my point is that that's probably not going to happen again. Like
right.
who would dump that much not dollar value, that much value in the system in terms of time to take to
Yeah.
get it
Right.
for $5,000.
Yeah.
And, does not see a future in it. I don't know. It's just somebody's getting, whoever's doing things like this or selling down eHEX at the lows here, stuff like that, rumors going around. Whoever's doing this kinds of stuff, they want out. They're done with Hex.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Yeah, good to see the bullishness on Teddy Bear as well. We got a lot of good stuff going on in this ecosystem. I think we're about to take off. I think we pretty much covered everything I wanted to get to. Ewok, was there anything you wanted to touch on before we get ready to wrap up here?
No, I don't think so, man. It's one of these times where you are going to have to deep dive on the secret weapon with the coupon and all that good stuff. It takes a while to absorb it all and to go through the whole theory of it. I don't know if you've looked at it yet or not, but I think it's definitely a couple times watching and listening and learning, but it does make sense. I worry about supporting it once the price gets up there, people just constantly dumping it. But I think once it's there, it's probably easier to support. But
my thoughts on that is, so basically all Comm is a market maker's wet dream, because it's the cheapest thing it's a hex derivative, and most of the supply is pushed out on the back end, so that's not coming out for a long time.
Yep.
And the amount of hex that it locks up in the short term to get that supply in the future is so much greater than that it's gonna lift up the price of hex and Comm with it, because that's how much has to get staked to get a high valued Comm in the future anyways, to dump it. So it becomes like a perpetual loop of value, in that right now it's not going to take a lot of economic energy and not a lot of adoption from hex dolphins and sharks and whales. It only will take like 5 or 10 guys, really, theoretically, to buy up all that supply. We know that 12% of the supply is in the hands of Johnny Sachs. He's doxed that, and it's in a time pays me vault. So you can for sure know that 12% is off the market. And like I said before, like 2 quadrillion, which is like a little, what is that percent wise? It's probably like 2.5% of the whole liquid supply. Just got bought up off the market like that, snap of a finger. And so it's like, there's so much opportunity in this for noobs as a cashback or like a coupon that they can get if they get into hex down the road and they stake it. It's just free money for them. And where this is all going, like, we can't see the amount of adoption that's going to come, because we can't see how high hex price can go. But once how high hex price can go comes, then everything else is going to start to fall in line with a lot of this stuff. It's like I think seeing is believing for a lot of these systems.
Sure.
With whether it be Comm, Hedron and Icosa, and the auctions, and just PulseChain as a whole. I mean, we're just going to have to let the market figure that out the hard way by getting left behind, unfortunately. And that's the ultimate stamp of approval, is like, once the green candles print and they hold, right?
Yep.
There's no one left to dump like that. Then, we're off to the races, and people are going to have to learn quick, right?
Yeah. Or get left behind. And buy higher.
Late.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Good stuff.
Yep, for sure.
Well, hey, I appreciate you guys.
Hey, I appreciate you too, man. Yeah, thanks for touching base last week, and it's always good, of course, to have you on. I know you got a busy week ahead of you here, which is probably good to start off the new year, just hopping on a bunch of streams and getting your message out there. Go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you. Yeah,
let's plug where you're going to be the next couple of days.
As well as your site and everything too. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. But yeah, both of them.
Yeah, so if you guys want to see what I got coming up in terms of upcoming streams, this is the first one. Well, the first one off of my own channel this year with you guys. So thank you for having me on for that.
There we go.
If you guys want to see, I got a bunch more streams planned. You want to pull this up? Yeah. Go to the about page on accessalive.com, and this drop down here. Click events, and I have all of that here listed. You can also find me on Telegram or on Twitter at Access Alive. I'm sure most of you guys know that, but I do a lot of good TA and just like hot market takes on there, and no cost to you. Just come gauge where my mind is at famous for calling the Bitcoin 2019 fractal and 2020 fractal on a hex. So that's going to be interesting. I'm actually going to be on with Donovan from DIY Investing on the 11th.
Oh, I think I saw that, dude. That's going to be awesome. On his channel, you mean, right?
Yeah, on his channel. And
Sweet.
that'll be, he's got like 56,000 subs. So Crispy Man and I will be able to like explain deeply the T-share system and how it works to his audience, which should be a big deal.
So great, dude.
And that'll be coming off the back of this Hex, the online Hex conference, where I got a few bookings there with Maddie as well. So, but this week here, tomorrow, I got a stream with an expert TA analysis. This guy Zero Crypto. He's not like a maxi. He's not really even that heavily involved in the RH stuff. He's just a goat, and he'll put his like tweets out, and it feels like they always hit. So I wanted him to come in with an outside perspective and give me like his top 10 things that he's seeing going on in the crypto space, and then also weigh in on what he's seeing in RH stuff from the outside in. And then on the 4th, I'm on with RH Max. We're going to talk about more of like just a casual stream about how to make money in crypto. So I think that most of you guys will probably be covered on that. But if you're not, just want to learn maybe a little more about like liquid loans or some of these other protocols, just come in and check that out too.
Nice. That's awesome, man. Yeah, definitely looking forward to the DIY investing one too. That's the kind of stuff that really matters. And shout out, what's his real name? I always forget his real name. Donovan. Yeah. I hadn't even heard of him until he was on with Maddie a week ago or whatever that was. So yeah, he seems like he's got his head on straight, and it's good to see somebody like him that's kind of outside of this community, digging hex and everything. So yeah, that's awesome for you guys to go on there and really break stuff down. That's what we really need to be happening right now.
100%. So, yeah, it's happening right at the perfect time too. And it's funny because he was seeing the signals coming in on eHEX before getting put on with Maddie and all that, and he talked about it on a couple of videos. And then he starts tweeting about it, and he starts seeing all this engagement that he's getting from the Hex community. And he's like, what's going on over there?
What's going on? Who are these people?
just like what happened with Blockchain Boy. Like these guys,
just gonna name him. Same thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And this is what we need, really. We need these figureheads one by one to fall into line and ask the right questions and get interested, because that's going to spread this ecosystem to a whole new group of people.
It's funny. I even remember starting this channel when we weren't, we were kind of just crypto as a whole with, mainly focusing on Hex, and then further and further and further and further, especially with the launch of PulseChain, it just became all about that. And yeah, you see it in the numbers. I mean, anybody that starts talking about it and engaging about it, whether it be this platform, YouTube, Twitter, whatever, I mean, you see that feedback, and it's like, well, shit, I'll keep talking about it. And then, I'm learning more and everything, So yeah, it's cool to see other guys kind of going through that and experiencing that too. So, all right.
And guess what? They don't have to deal with any of the 2 years of down. They just get to get in at the bottom, and there we go.
Yeah, they get to victory lap it basically right at the end. So
right,
good for them. Hey,
come on board, guys. We got rid of the dead weight.
Yeah, carry us up, please. Yeah, bring us up.
Let's go.
All right, man. Well, hey, this was so great. Definitely look forward to hopefully having you on maybe later this year. We'll check out all of your streams for sure. And yeah, everybody, make sure you check out Matty Allen's. Does it kick off Ewok on the? Well, you just said you were on the 4th axis, didn't you? Or
the 6th with the 4th is with RH Max.
My bad.
I'm on with. So I think the first day is the 6th.
Yeah.
And I'm on at 8 p.m. But I think it starts at 6 p.m. Don't quote me on it. You can find that at on Maddie's handle.
Yeah.
And he's been streaming while we are too. So everybody bounce on over there, and I'll check out what he's got going on tonight. But yeah, that's going to be starting the Hex conference this weekend. So I'm sure there's going to be a couple of nice special surprises, as Maddie usually does have. So yeah, that's going to wrap us up for this week. So we want to say thank you to Axis Alive. If you guys are still here and enjoyed this stream, please do support Real DeFi, support Axis Alive, hit the like button before you get out of here. We do this show every single Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So for my friend and co-host, Crypto Ewok, and my friend and guest, Axis Alive, thank you all. We'll catch you guys right here next week on the Creed of Crypto Podcast.
Thank you guys.
Yep.